Good day, students. A warm greetings to all of you. Welcome to our contact classes for research project phase 1, that is Bes Rpp241. Speaking to you today, I'm Etuna Simon Ngifikwa, your research supervisor and tutor for this module. You can contact me on the number that is displayed on your screen, that is 085-266-3698, and you can also drop me an email, jetuna@gmail.com, and the best time to contact me is between 8:30 and 4:30. Today, we are going to look at the reflective thinking questions, important information, as well as the research proposal outline, and some important tips for you as you take your journey into the educational research. These are some of the questions that you can ask to reflect back as you prepare for your research proposal. What do I want to study? Why is the topic important? How is it significant within the subject areas covered in my course? What problems will it help solve? How does it build upon and hopefully go beyond research already conducted on the topic? What exactly should I plan to do, and can I get it done in the time available? So those are very important questions that you can reflect on as you prepare your journey toward your research project. Some important information that you need to pay attention to is that when you prepare a research proposal in your area of expertise, you are actually required to choose any topic of your choice in your area of interest, and that is a topic that you can share with your supervisor for more guidance. Ensure that your proposal is at least 12 pages long, that is the maximum pages, including table of contents as well as the references. And make sure that your proposal is typed and you use Times New Roman, that is for the font, and font size 12. Also pay attention to the line spacing of your document. It should be 1.5. And also make use of the APA format for both in-text citations as well as the reference list. So it is important to understand the sections for the research proposal, and we refer to them as sections. So we are going to talk about the 3 sections that are very important as you are drafting your research proposal. So we have section 1, that is basically introduction to your proposal, and then section 2, that is literature review, and section 3 is on methodology as well as references. Very important, they need to be references, at least reference 8 cited materials. Let's start with section 1, that is introduction. Very important, you need to provide a brief background, where you talk about what has been done in the field, how it has been done, and sort of like to motivate why your study, why do you want to carry out a research in a particular field of study. Now, very important, you need to pay attention to the statement of the problem. So I will talk about all this in more details in this presentation, and also questions or objectives of the study. So when we say questions or objectives, you need to choose one of them but not do both. That means that your heading should contain only either questions of the study, or it should read as objectives of the study. This applies to rationale or significance of the study. So you cannot have a heading that says rationale or significance. You can either have significance of the study or rationale of the study. You need to also talk about limitations of the study. delimitations of the study, as well as definitions of key terms. That is very important. Let us begin with background of the study. There you are expected to provide the necessary background or context for your research problem, because your readers need to understand where is the problem coming from, why that particular study, and you need to provide a brief but appropriate historical backdrop. So and so carried out a study in this field, or this was done in this country, just a brief background thereof. And then you need to provide the contemporary context in which your proposed research questions occupies the central stage. There you need that is very important there, especially when you are framing the question. So you need to identify key players, the expert in that field, and refer to the most relevant and representative publications. Very important. And in short, try to point your research question in broad brushes. At the same time, bring out its significance. So we need to understand why is your research important. That should already come out in the background of the study. So that background should be brief but concise, to the point as well. With regard to the statement of the problem, we realize that most students particularly have a problem with this. You need to provide a brief background about the problem in relation to the literature. State the research problem. What is the problem? You need to state it. So once you indicate that this and that has been done, you then give a particular problem. You must state it. Like, for example, you can say, this is just a practical example to say that a study was done in the Commerce region, and it has found out that teachers were trained in this particular aspect. Okay, for example, they were trained on how to make use of the technology, and they were able to integrate technology in their study. Okay, for example, in their classroom. Now, when you are stating the problem, you would then say that with all this, what has been done, either the interventions, whatever it is from either the line Ministry of Education, try to train teachers. However, teachers are not integrating technology, for example. So you state the problem. You also then need to give a more detailed explanation about the purpose of the study than what you stated in the introduction. So you are not repeating what you stated in the introduction, but you are sort of like summarizing what has been done in that field, then you state the problem. So you should relate to the literature, very important. And this is particularly important if a problem is complex or multifaceted. You need to describe the major issues or problems to be addressed by your research. What can your study do about the research problem? So very important, once you state the problem, you then indicate what your study will do concerning that particular problem. So be sure to note how your proposed study builds on previous assumptions about the research problem. That is also very important there. So at least have about 2 paragraphs there, not more than that. Okay, questions or objectives of the study. As indicated earlier, you choose either. You cannot do both. You can either do questions of the study or objectives of the study. So state the research questions in an attempt to answer, or research objectives. Choose one, either object, not both. So you cannot do both. So you must have an introductory statement to say the following research questions will assist to answer, or you see, and also place your research question in the context of either a current hot area or an older area that remains viable. Indicate the main research questions and sub-questions where applicable, and indicate the main objectives where possible. So it is very important that you don't do both, but you focus on either. So depending on your study. as long as there is an introductory statement before you list. Particularly with the research questions, you need to number them. If you have 3 questions, they should be clearly numbered as question 1. Now you have number 1 there, 2, 3, so forth. You number them clearly. If it's research objectives, then you can also then number them accordingly. Perhaps you can make use of a bullet list. With regard to the rationale or significance of the study, choose either the rationale or significance, not both. Very important when you see a heading with rationale or significance, as long as there is OR there in the middle, you need to choose either. You cannot do both. So you should present the rationale of your proposed study and clearly indicate why it is worth doing. Answer the so what. You know, people might have that questions. This is just to think about what your readers may think. So what question, why should anyone care, you know, for example. So you need to understand as to why is that very important. So you must first establish sort of like a background to your study, and then you state why is your study important. So why the study should be done, why should you conduct that study, and the specific purpose of the study, you need to state it out. It should come out there and be able to describe how the anticipated result will impact future scholarly research, theory, practice, forms of interventions or policy making. For example, the line ministry, you know, practice, we are referring to teachers. For example, if you are doing a study and it has to do with teaching, you know, practice or teachers in particular, so how will that study then impact, you see, the future in terms of teaching, for example. Moving on to limitation of the study, we are still busy with the research proposal. There you are expected to explain how you plan to go about conducting your research. Clearly identify key resources you intend to use and explain how they will contribute to your analysis of the topic. You see, that is in terms of the limitations. Now, what are the possible limitations of your study? Avoid using financial constraints and time as limitations. We already know that, for example, in the current status where we are now, there are other limitations, but however, financial constraints and time, it's not does not warrant limitations, because you are expected to do this to complete your degree, you see. So you need to make time. You cannot say you don't have time, and you cannot say you don't have that money, for example. You need to make sure that you do it at least in your area of vicinity where you are able to access your participants, for example. So make reference to participants, settings, and context when when outlining the limitations of the study. For example, this study is limited to 5 teachers. You see, that is a very clear limitation to the study. Okay, or in terms of the context or settings, like for example, this study, due to the small number of participants or sample, this study cannot be generalized to a larger context. You see, perhaps settings, institutions with similar settings can emulate the findings. You see, that is actually an acceptable statement for the limitation of the study. Moving on, in terms of delimitation of the study, there you are expected to set boundaries of your proposed research in order to provide a clear focus. You see, like for example, this study will only look at teachers at senior primary. You see, for example, it will not include teachers that are at junior primary, you see, or it is only focusing in a specific circuit, for example, or a region. You see, you set boundaries. Where appropriate, state not only what you will study, but what is excluded from the study. Very important. Like for example, you are stating the inclusions and then exclusions of your study. So boundaries in terms of the participants. Like for example, you will only focus on the grade 5 to 7 or maybe 6 and 7. You see, who will be included and who will be excluded from that particular study. So that is a very important question to understand there, because you need to clearly state the boundaries of your study. Now, in terms of definitions of terms, if necessary, provide definitions of key concepts or terms. Indicate how certain terms should be understood in your study. And very important, when you are defining these terms, you should actually provide references. In many a time, students will write a definition, but there is no reference. You need to credit source of information when it comes to those terms, and also you can indicate how they should be understood in your study. So depending on the number of terms, this can also be presented in a table format, just to have a clear outline of the terms. So the one column will contain then the terms, and then on the other column, then you can have a specific definition to that particular term as defined in your study. Okay, let's move on to section 2, that is literature review. In terms of literature review, I know most students struggle with this section. Remember, it is still a proposal. Now, at the proposal stage, you are expected to summarize your ideas so that everything will fit into the 12 pages as indicated earlier. So, literature review must be relevant to your topic. It must be logical and clearly presented. We are saying at least 8 separate cited materials that you can use. If you have a journal, maybe books, we are talking about primary sources like previous studies that were done in that field. So at least you should use 8 cited separate materials. So you should review, you should have at least a review and synthesis of prior studies related to the research problem under investigation. And then you should, very important, indicate theoretical or conceptual framework which one you will adopt and adapt for this proposed study. So you need to clearly indicate that. So if you are choosing or you are going the route of theoretical framework, you should then present that theory and how you will adopt it in your study. So remember, it's a proposal. Here you are just indicating what you are going to do, how you are going to do it. Very important when it comes to literature review, the same, whatever the materials you are reviewing, you can have subheadings there in terms of the topics of your literature, what you are going to review in your project. So you can just summarize ideas as per the headings that you have, and also remember to then have either a theoretical or conceptual framework. I will explain further on this as we move on to phase 2. So with regard to theoretical framework, you are actually basically just focusing on the theory that you are adapting for your study. The difference between theoretical framework and conceptual framework is that they are all, originating from specific theories. However, this one, you develop it as you go in your study. That is now the conceptual framework. You can then develop a conceptual framework in your study, either by combining different theories and you only adopt or adapt specific construct from a particular theory. So that is the difference now. And then you develop that, the concept that will emerge in that particular study. Okay, we are still busy with literature review. What do the authors agree on? It's very important to bring that out. Who apply similar approaches to analyzing the research problem? What are the major areas of disagreement, controversy, or debate? So that need to come out clearly. Pay attention to the verbs you use to describe what an author says or does. For example, assert, demonstrate, argues. Like for example, you are saying Simon 2014, you are referencing argues that or assert. You see, asserted that or demonstrate, you need to pay attention to that. And it should be in line with what you are citing. Very important, you need to paraphrase when you are compiling the literature review. So paraphrase at all time, but if you cite directly from the source, you need to provide the year and then the page number. Very important. So how does your own work draw upon or depart from from what you're reviewing? So you need a synthesis, or you need to add a new perspective to what has been said in the literature. Very important. That should come out. Remember, you are reviewing. It's a review that you are doing. You are not merely copying and pasting what Simon has done in 2014, but basically you are reviewing my work. So you need to present it as such, as a review. Very important there. Okay, let's move on to our section 3, that is methodology. Remember our proposal only has 3 sections. We have section 1, that is introduction, section 2, literature review. Now we are at the last session, that is methodology. So here you need to focus on research design, population where applicable. It depends now, are you doing a qualitative study or quantitative study? So we will explain in more details for each and every topic, subtopics here. Sample and sampling procedure, instruments, data collection procedure, data analysis, as well as ethical considerations. Okay, now there you need to make a decision as to why the research design and method used were chosen over the other options. Like for example, you need to particularly indicate if your study is qualitative or based on quantitative methods. For example, you need to demonstrate your knowledge of alternative methods as well, and make the case that your approach is the most appropriate and most valid way to address your research question. So if you are choosing qualitative research, you need to back it up with relevant literature as well. Why that particular study? For example, this study will employ a multiple case study approach, or will focus on the qualitative research, and then the specific focus is maybe case study, multiple case study. So you need to back it up. Why is it appropriate to address your research question? Decide on the method and approach for qualitative and or quantitative research. So depending on your choice, you just need to back it up. Especially here, I advise students to make use of research books. We have gurus in the field. If it's qualitative, I expect to read literature from Conceptual. I expect to read information from Yin, for example. Mixed method, the same. Quantitative, there are gurus in the field. There are different books. There is also the recommended book that you are required to use. So very important there, you should make reference to research books. And recently there was actually also a book that is launched, that is a qualitative research book, very important book there. I will also include it in the references. And then in terms of the research method, that is now, if you are opting for qualitative, we'll talk more in details on qualitative. So multi-method in focus, this is involving an interpretive, naturalistic approach. That is the qualitative, and understanding of underlying reasons, opinions, and motivations. So you need to have that understanding, and also qualitative analysis. In terms of that, your method section needs to be more elaborated. So you need to elaborate more. And for data collection process in qualitative research has a far greater impact on the results as compared to quantitative research. So when you are opting for the qualitative, you need to know which method. Is it a single case study, multiple case study? Are you doing an ethnography research? So you need to get into details. Remember, with qualitative research, we need to understand settings, the context. We need to get insight information from our participants. So there is deeper understanding. So hence we are saying there is understanding of underlying reasons, opinions, as well as motivations thereof. Okay, in terms of quantitative method, the method section typically consists of the following sections. You will have design. Is it a questionnaire study or laboratory experiment? What kind of design do you choose? You know, you have to make your choice clearly already from the onset. Subject or participants, you know, you need to indicate your participants who will take part in your study. What kind of sampling procedure do you use? In terms of instrument, what kind of measuring instrument or questionnaires do you use? Why do you choose them? Are they valid? Are they reliable? Those are questions that you need to answer as you are preparing for your research proposal. In terms of the procedure, how do you plan to carry out your study? What activities are involved? How long does it take? You know, it's very important to bring that out. So once that is done, then you need to have then your reference list. So there you are expected to make use of APA referencing style for in-text citations as well as for the reference list. I noticed that most students have a tendency of copying other study. This is not allowed because we need to hear your voice in this proposal. You need to do your own work. Remember, proposal is all about writing about what you are going to do, how you are going to do it. Whichever method you chose, you opted for, you just need to motivate why that particular, if it's qualitative, if it is quantitative. So list only sources that you actually used or cited in your proposal. Do not copy other people's study. Do not copy other people's references. You need to reference whatever it is that you use, all the resources, you must credit them. Avoid plagiarism at all costs and credit all sorts of information. So you are encouraged to really read up on your area. Make sure you have at least 8 resources. You can have more. You can have 10 references or at least not more than 15, because it should not be more than 2 pages, at least, because it's still on a proposal, stage. You are still proposing what you are going to do. So I've noticed in all the years that students have a tendency of copying and pasting. That is not allowed, because your proposal will be checked with a plagiarism detection software, and if we pick up that you are copying your proposal from previous studies, then you will nullify it will be nullified. You see, you will then be asked to either redo it, so you don't want to go back and start over. So just do it right from the beginning. So that is very important, and do not go beyond the 12 pages. So common mistakes in proposal writing: failure to provide the proper context to frame the research question. That is common in most proposal. So at times students fail to delimit the boundary conditions for their research. Failure to cite landmark studies. So please make sure that you identify the expert or kind of like gurus in your study, people that studies that were conducted in your area, so that we can credit those. We build on those research. Failure to accurately present the theoretical and or empirical contributions by other researchers. Very important to credit source of information. Also, failure to stay focused on the research question. So don't dwell on anything and everything. Just be focused, find your place, and just be specific to your study. Failure to develop a coherent and persuasive argument for the proposed research. Very important to make sure that coherence is adhered to, and you should persuade your readers. You see, you need to defend, sort of like to support what it is that you are doing. We are still busy with the common mistakes. in proposal writing. Too much detail on minor issues, but not enough detail on major issues. So don't dwell on minor issues. And also too much rambling, going all over the map without a clear sense of direction. So the best proposal move forward with ease and grace like seamless river, you see. Too many citation lapses and incorrect references. You are just all over the place. You need to be focused. Too long or too short. Don't make it too long and don't make it too short. Hence, you are given at least a maximum of 12 pages. Failing to follow the APA referencing style, that is what we use here. Don't use other referencing style, and also sloping writing. So the focus should be there. Make use of academic writing, you see. These are some references. You will get the links, very important resources, just to understand the writing, guide to research proposal. It's very important. How to write a proposal, you can also get information there. And we have actually almost coming to the end of our presentation. I just want to say that I'm wishing you all the best in your proposal journey. You have to follow the instructions. Make sure the 12 pages times New Roman, that is our font, and font size 12, line spacing 1.5. Very important. And make sure you align the paragraph so that they, don't have this one sentence is ending here. Align them. You see those equal lines in the middle there. We need to align our paragraph. And there is my contact details once more. You can drop me an email. You can also then send me a text message to follow up. But I normally respond first to email, and the best time to consult me or contact me is actually between 8:30 to 4:30. Very important. Thank you for your time. All the best with your proposal writing, and I'm looking forward to reviewing your proposal. Take note that you are allowed to send me a draft of your proposal so that you receive comments accordingly, and then before you actually submit your final proposal for grading. Thank you.